Good morning or afternoon or evening or whenever you're watching or listening to this, everybody. This is Nick Vlahos from Nick in the Morning, the podcast on pjstar.com. We are here today with Mark Johnstone, the proprietor of Rhodell Brewery in Peoria, one of the original brewers. He was brewing beer before craft beer was fashionable, and he's joined us today to talk about his brewery, his life story, and maybe a little bit about beer as well, too. We'll try to work that in there. You've got the new location now, and it's not quite new anymore. It's over a year old now,
it's
right?
It's about 2.5 years.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Wow.
August 15.
God, time flies when you're having fun, I guess, or when you're drinking beer. How did it all start with you going to this location? How did that all come about?
Well, we 2013 met Brian Murray, and we had decided to move.
First of all, we should probably state where the location is.
Right. It's in the Murray building, which is now renamed Murray Place.
Okay. Right along Water Street there in downtown.
Right. It's basically a block north from where we were.
Mm-hmm.
We had decided to move for a variety of reasons, and we wanted to give our business a better platform, a better showcase for the beer that we make. And the old location was just a bit too rustic, so we had to make it present our product a little better. And we started speaking to Brian, and it just fell in place. Everything clicked.
Now, your old location was right next to Kelleher's there, a little farther south on Water Street, and it was basically just a bar with a few tables and some brewing equipment in it. This is quite a bit bigger. I mean, how many square feet are we talking about?
Actually, it's about the same. It's about 5,000 square feet.
Really?
It's just designed better, so we gave ourselves more living space for tables and chairs as a more social space, and I redesigned the brewing area to make it not so much for people to make their own beer, but for us to make our own beer. So we have two brewing systems now that let us do lots of small batches, very flexible, and that was one of the main advantages. That's what we really wanted to improve on, was our own beer.
How's it been going at the new place so far? Just as the number of beers you can make, business, just everything?
Business in general has been great. Quite surprising. I don't think we really knew how busy it was going to be quite frank. And it took us completely by surprise, particularly on the days, like St. Patrick's Day and Mardi Gras, where there's some serious volume put through these front doors. So yeah, I can't complain. It's a lot more steady with a proper shop front, so to speak. We're a lot more visible now, and that was one of the main attractions. We wanted to put our head above the parapet, so to speak, and and let people know that we're there. Because to this day, a lot of people don't know that we're there.
Well, I mean, you've had a brewery in Peoria for almost 20 years.
20 years. Next year's our 20th anniversary. Yeah. May 1st.
But there's a lot of people who, when you're hidden down there on Water Street, it was like, I didn't even know you guys were here. I didn't know that you guys actually serve beer too.
Right.
When you first opened, I think was your main clientele for people who wanted to come in and brew their own beer, as opposed to serving your own beer to customers?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we started off with just having 3 beers on tap, just so people could taste the beer that could be made. And it was about 80% of our business was people coming in and making their own beer. And about 2006, that kind of started flipping to where we were making a lot more of our own beer, and our own beer became a lot more consistent. And I think that's when the second wave of craft brewing started to develop, and people took a lot more interest in what we were making, and that's where it really started to, And I'm kind of glad that we started to downplay the customers coming to make their own beer, because it gave us a bigger surge in our own beer, so the profit margins were greater.
It costs more to help people brew beer than it does to just brew it yourself and sell it to people.
And the other brewing premises that I'm aware of charge substantially more than we charge. And with the people making their own beer, it was very much a social thing, 3 or 4 guys. So when we started to limit that, unknowingly, when the Caterpillar layups came through, 2008, 2009, that diminished as well. That business diminished because people were starting to leave Peoria, and that became very apparent last year. And the brew on premise side, the personal brewing, took a real hit. And if we had been at 80%, depending on that, that would have been.
Oh, that would have been terrible.
That would it would have been. So
how much of your business now is based on people coming in to brew their own?
It's less than 9%.
Okay. Can people still do that if they want
absolutely, yeah. We're actually booked up on Thursdays all the way through November. And my assistant Matt, he takes Thursday nights, and I do Fridays and Saturdays.
How easy or difficult is it to lead people through that process? Are they open to it? I mean, do they? Just what is the reaction that you usually get from people who have maybe never done it before?
Right. It's either one of two things. They're either really into it, or they're just there to drink beer and have a good time. so you're right. Yeah.
Do you get more of one or more of the other, or does it?
Sometimes you got to shepherd them around, but I mean they're there to enjoy themselves, and most of the people do want to learn something as a byproduct of them drinking beer and making beer.
I don't know. Sometimes it's just enough for me to just drink the beer and stumble off the bar stool at the end of the day, let alone having to learn how to drink it too, or how to make it. Actually, I like to drink it. I don't know if I like to make it.
Well,
much.
People are. It's a very the process and the raw materials. People are really interested in what goes into the beer, and that's where we can show them the different malts, different hops, different yeasts.
And there's also a big thing now. I think people want to see authenticity or locality in what they consume, and they want to see that it's made by somebody that they know, or that maybe the products come from a local source or something along those lines too. You probably benefit from that.
And that's where brewing is so interesting, because there's so many different ingredients from different countries. And Oktoberfest, we used all German malts in our Oktoberfest this year, German hops. In fact, the only thing that was from America was the water. So.
I hope you didn't have to pay too much excise tax on any of that.
No.
How many beers do you usually have on tap at one time?
We have 10 beers on tap most of the time, and we have a cask ale as well.
What is a cask ale for people that may not know?
Cask conditioned is the traditional way of serving British beer through a hand pump, and where there's no extraneous carbon dioxide gas used. And the beer is re-fermented, well, not re-fermented, it's conditioned in the keg, develops a very small amount of residual carbon dioxide. The keg's vented, it's put onto the hand pump, and the hand pump pulls the beer through. So you get a very kind of soft, creamy texture to the beer.
And for people who may not know what this looks like, when you go to a typical bar, you've got the taps on the wall or something along those lines. This is an actual, it looks like a little pump that's actually on the bar itself.
Yeah, it's a hand pump. And our hand pump actually came from England.
Did it really?
Yeah. A small bar just outside Dorset.
Yeah. How did you happen to stumble upon that?
eBay.
It's the international language. The internet just democratizes everything. How long have you been into brewing? Now, you opened here in '98, but were you brewing before that? How did you get started?
I was looking at my journal the other day there in preparation for this. 1990 is when I started homebrewing.
What was the impetus for that? Why'd you start?
I don't know. My wife and I were just passing the homebrew shop one day, and we picked up a beer kit. We were members of the campaign for Real Ale. We were kind of into the local beer scene in Edinburgh. So I can't give you an honest answer why we picked the beer kit up.
Do you remember much about the first ones you made? I mean, how good they were, how bad they were? Was a lot of trial and error involved with it?
Yeah, and then there was a lot of misinformation about it in the early 90s. What to do, and I've got some old country beer books that put this and put that, and you go, wow, really? Not anymore. So we had some good batches and we had some pretty bad batches.
But eventually the kinks get worked out, and now it's almost got to be second nature to you. If I'm one of your regular customers, so we'll just get that bias out in the open here. I think Mark makes very good beer. You do little variations on the same themes in some ways. You always have a stout. You always have some sort of a dark beer. You always try to have a light beer, but there's differences in those categories. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right, and that's one of the things we're known for. Is we've always got an IPA on, or we've always got a stout on, but we do so many different stouts. Like we do a cream stout where we add lactose. We do the midnight stout, which uses midnight wheat, which is very dark roasted wheat, so it's got a creamy texture to it. For the hops, the IPAs, I mean, there's so many different hop varieties around. You can take the basic recipe, for hophead, for example, and then just change out the hops, and you get a completely different beer. Particularly if the hops are based on a kind of piney, like Simcoe,
Sure.
or more citrus, like the classic Cascade, and the very floral and fruity Citra, which is really one of my favorite hops.
Now, Citra, where do they grow that in Washington State, or is that?
They're grown in the U.S., yeah.
Okay, and most of that is in the Pacific Northwest. Most of the hops grown.
And we're under contract with
Okay.
for hops.
What do you find is your most popular, either the brand of beer that you do or the style of beer that you do?
It goes by season, you know, and it's more noticeable now than we're kind of in the wide open than it was in the shadow, so to speak. The Oktoberfest is flying through the doors.
This is the time of year for it.
Yeah. Right. And in the summer, you know, we do a beer with orange and coriander. We call it Summer Sun. That flies out the door. The blueberry cream we have to keep on all the time now. And I used to like varying the fruit beers to, you know, just keep the changes going. But we take blueberry off,
Everybody starts complaining.
You start hearing it. Yeah.
It's a very good beer. I'll vouch for that as well. What happens when you have somebody come in and they say, you know what, all I want's a Bud Light? How do you react to that?
Well, we're inclusive, you know. It was one of the mistakes we made early on is we didn't sell domestic beer. And the reason for that is, you know, you get 5 guys coming in and only one guy wants our beer, but 5 guys, the other 4 want domestic beer in the early days. Well, they would just walk out the door. So you're losing customers. So if you start catering for everybody, it keeps everybody happy. And you're more likely to get new customers that way as well, because, okay, here, try this. You like that? Try that. And we pick up so many customers like that, it's ridiculous.
Well, what kind of beer, if they're a little more adventurous and they say, I want something that tastes like a Bud Light, but I don't necessarily want Bud Light, what kind of beer do you lead them to that you do?
Ironically, our Midwest wheat. It's a wheat beer, but it's very clean. And we actually use a lager yeast on it, a Pilsner yeast on it, so it's got a clean finish. But it's got enough body to know that it is different from a microbrew.
Is this the same philosophy that you have for having a full bar in your place now as well? Because your old place up there on Water did not have a bar, if I'm not mistaken.
The old place, it kind of grew out of nothing. We didn't really have a plan for the bar area, to be quite frank. That wasn't really in the business plan. We thought we were just going to be a brewing premise, and the demand for our beer just grew. So when we knew we could redesign the bar, that had to be a component. I'm glad we did. We sell a ridiculous amount of booze.
Well, I think it gets back to the point you were making earlier, is that when you have a group of maybe 5 or 6 people come in, maybe you've got 3 or 4 beer drinkers, but maybe you got a couple of people that would rather have a gin and tonic or a glass of wine or something along those lines. And if you don't have it, it's the same kind of deal. You know, they'll just turn around and go someplace else.
Right, and it opens up new markets for us, basically. So it's easier to get parties.
I know you were talking at one time about having at least some semblance of a kitchen in your new place. Is there anything to that anymore? I mean, have you decided maybe that's not the way to go, or what exactly?
We thought we were going to do it, and I'm glad we didn't.
Really? Why is that?
I think, particularly in the first 7 or 8 months when we opened the new location, I think if we'd had food service, it would have probably killed us. It would have probably closed us. We would have had so many bad reviews, I think. And you can't keep everybody happy with food. Now, we had a small kitchen at the old location for about 2 years, and freshly made fries, great burgers, brats, you know. People would come and look what you had and say, no, I don't want that, I want something else. So you can't keep everybody happy. You either do a full menu or you don't, and that can apply that to another area when it comes to the beers, which is distribution. You either do it or you don't do it.
Yeah, you're in for a penny, in for a pound.
Correct, yeah. And that's what I find. So we're known for our beer. People like to come to us to have a couple of beers, either before they go somewhere or after they've been somewhere. And we're known for that. It's a good place to come. It's a formula that works for us. I've heard people in the business going, they don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. No, we do know what we're doing. And the figures prove it.
Well, it's having grown up in the restaurant business myself, I can say that running a restaurant and running a bar, or running a restaurant and running a brewery are very different things. You know, they take different skill levels, different talents, that sort of thing. If you do one really well and you're not sure about doing the other, you're probably better off sticking with what you do well and not what you don't.
Right. You know, and even when we had the food, people still took off before dinner and went somewhere else for dinner. You know, and then you get silly instances where you don't serve an appetizer all week, and on a Friday at 5 o'clock you get an order for 40 appetizers.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hurry up and wait.
It's just so inconsistent at that.
Yeah. Now you can still, I mean, you still have frozen pizza at your place too.
We do
you don't really publicize it, but you can get one if you want.
Pizza, the ever popular Butch's Pizza.
Hey, it's good stuff. You know, he sells a lot of it for a reason. Yeah, and it's all good. As anybody who's been listening to us for the last 15, 20 minutes can tell, and anybody who goes into your establishment can tell, all you have to do is open your mouth to realize that you're not from around Peoria originally. I mean, I still get this. I'm from Chicago, and I still get the "you're not from around here, are you?" thing, and I've been here 30 years. You're from Scotland originally, from Edinburgh.
Yeah.
You grew up there. How did you end up here?
Well, you can thank my wife for that. She was the U of I foreign exchange student, and I was in my honours year at the University of Stirling, and they decided to put her in my apartment.
Oh, that's a nice little present.
Room. There were 6 different rooms, and so that was in 1988.
And she's from the Peoria area originally?
Yeah, she's a Peoria girl, limestone girl.
So one thing led to another, and
I was in my honours year, so I was in my 4th year. She was in her 3rd year. We started dating. I graduated, got a job. She went back to the States. We kept in touch, and she came over September 1990. So.
And you guys, when did you
we
actually
got married in April '91.
Okay, and you lived in Edinburgh until you came over here.
Yeah.
What did you do in Edinburgh? What kind
I was
of
in paint, industrial paints. Yeah, technical sales.
How'd you like it?
Well, for a political science, social administration graduate, it's
not exactly a good fit.
But it taught me the how to deal with people on a very precise technical level, and deal with some very tricky people. So that, I actually enjoyed it towards the end. But it was a small family business, one of the oldest businesses in Scotland, and there was no real avenue to.
No room for promotion or anything like that.
So when the chance of this venture came up, we took the risk, and it was a real risk.
Yeah, how did that all come about? Were you guys sitting around one day and saying, you know what, why don't you come to Peoria and open up a brewery?
Well, my 2 brother-in-laws were homebrewers, and we were homebrewing. So in about 1996, we came over here on vacation, and they were like, we're going to do it. They had been looking at purchasing equipment. They found the brew on premise angle, which is where customers come and make their own beer. And we all agreed that was seemed to have a bit more longevity to it, and it suited what we wanted to be. We didn't want to be big. We didn't want to have large tanks and and everything that goes with that. Because we're trying to keep it tight and keep it to what we could bring our experience to bring to bear on it. So I'm getting mixed up on this.
Well, it's you want to it's kind of like what we're talking about with food. You want to stick with what you know and not really get too crazy with it.
Yeah, we didn't want to produce 1,000 gallons of beer at once. We enjoyed the homebrewing aspects, and this fitted into what we really wanted to do.
It's just a little bit bigger version of a homebrewing
so
setup.
15, 20 gallons. And they started looking at equipment. They got an equipment manufacturer in Canada. I got a telephone call, we bought the equipment, come over, sell your house. And we all started freaking out.
Sometimes you just have to close your eyes and jump.
Yeah, and it was a risk, a real risk. If you sit down and think about it, why did we do that? But I didn't want to be 65 and sitting in my house going, I wished I'd really taken the risk, taken the chance.
Sure. What was it like when you first got here and started doing all that? What kind of a reception did you have in the Peoria community with your business?
One of the things I remember the most is the lady walking up to me and saying, you'll be out of business in 6 months.
Well, that's not exactly a welcome to town type of a thing. It's like,
believe it or not, she's still one of my customers.
I'm surprised you didn't kick her out after that. Was she just, was that her way of complimenting like what you were doing?
No, she thought we had no idea what we were doing and it was going to go flat. But I knew after the first winter season, which is traditionally a very good season for us, and we could have a business if we sorted all the peaks and the troughs if we got that more consistent.
Well, at that time, craft beer in general was not going through a big boom necessarily. Certainly around here it wasn't.
You know, I mean, that was really this coming towards the tail end of the first bubble, and it wasn't long after that where, you know, there was closings. You know, Crooked Waters.
Crooked Waters was right there down there on the riverfront.
October 2000, yeah, they closed. But we were unique, and we were small, and our overhead. You know, one of the big things about having a small business is overhead.
Sure.
And we were able to slowly grind our way into having a business.
Was it easy or difficult to make beers, or at least sell beers for the Peoria palate? Or did the Peoria palate come more back to you when it came to what kind of beers people prefer? For years, this was always, when I first got here, this was a big Pabst Blue Ribbon town because they had the brewery in Peoria Heights. So, you know, sophisticated beers or beers on a higher level than that were not exactly common around.
No, that was very much a gradual thing. And a lot of the beers we started with, we couldn't sell now. We still have, you know, our Irish Red, Digger's Irish Red, named after my late father-in-law. But that recipe's morphed into something completely different. As Muddy Water Stout, that's now Black Angus Stout. It's a lot more richer. So the beers that we're making now bear very little resemblance to what we used to make.
You're a little more creative with it than maybe you were back then, or there's a little more. Right. There's a different flavor.
Absolutely,
to it.
Absolutely, and you can get away with a lot more now. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, if you look at the beer landscape, barrel aging and wild fermented beers and sour beers, which are pointless.
Now, we could do a whole other topic on that. Because I have very strong opinions on some beers.
Mail starts.
What is your favorite beer, and what beers do you think? And I'm not talking about specific brewers. I'm not, you know, I'm just talking about styles more than anything else. Which ones do you prefer, and which ones do you think you really just don't have time for?
Oh, I grew up loving Belgians. I used to get cases of Belgian beer in Edinburgh.
And we're not talking about Stella Artois. We're talking about real Belgian.
Certainly not talking about Stella.
What are the characteristics of a typical Belgian beer?
Usually the fermentation characteristics and the higher alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
The esters produced by the Belgian yeasts create a lot more flavorful beer.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so distinctive, they're usually more highly carbonated, particularly in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a lot more effervescent, almost champagne-like, some of them. So I love those. Obviously the Scottish and English ales, real ales. I was a member for the campaign for real ale, so to get a fresh cask beer is one of the best experiences.
What was the campaign for real ale? Was this something
campaign
in the UK?
For real ale, yeah. CAMRA was its abbreviated name. As breweries consolidated in the 60s and 70s, they started producing keg beer, and they started dropping the cask ale. Cask ale takes skill to keep in the cellar, and they obviously just wanted a case where they could deliver beer straight to the pub, hook it up, and serve it. Pretty much, nitrogen beers took out cask ale.
Sure.
Similar kind of consistency, thick, creamy head, and that's one of the reasons why they were so keen to develop nitrogen beer.
It was, and I've noticed this, I was in the UK in January. It seems like over the years, and the last time I was there was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, it seems like now there are fewer cask ales, even at a lot of the pubs, and there are more beers on tap, like you said, like we have here. In fact, a lot of the beers are the same as we have here too, which is a little scary because you want to see something different. And
it's actually one of the bigger brewers in Scotland that got into serious brewdog. They champion the more American style beer dispensing, and they've had some real problems with hate mail over there.
No, I can imagine they probably have. I mean, speaking just as a traveler myself, when I go to a foreign country, I don't necessarily want to drink Miller Lite or Coors or something like that, or even like Blue Moon. But a lot of the places over that I went to in London, they had all that stuff, and they featured it prominently. And it's like, what are you drinking this for?
I have to admit, the same experience. We were over there in December, and it's like, good grief.
Now, which beers what styles do you not care for?
Oh, that's easy. Sours. Pointless. Spend all your day trying to make sure these organisms are not in the brewery.
Now, you're talking about sours. Describe what a sour is.
I would say it's more of the American uptake on sours. The introduction of organisms that intentionally sour the beer. So you can take a perfectly good beer and add those microorganisms, and it'll turn the beer.
Sure. And there are some breweries that specialize in those kind of beers, and that's the hot thing.
I'm very wealthy doing it. So I mean, this is my personal opinion.
Yes.
So before I get a brick through my window.
It's everybody's got their own taste when it comes to that.
I think growing up in a cooler climate like I did, a wet and windy climate, sours are just not satisfying. They don't do it for me.
No, they don't really quench your thirst very well, I don't think.
And the other things I hear, about sours is, well, as long as you get past the sourness, they're good.
Well, it kind of defeats the whole purpose, doesn't it? I mean, I'm personally, I would rather, I'm a stout, porter, lager, pilsner type of a guy.
Right. And maybe, for me, the essence of beer is the relationship between malt and hops and yeast. And to a lesser extent, water, if you want to delve into the chemistry of it. But the warmth you can get from malted barley, the refreshing qualities of hops, and the esters you get from yeast are infinitely more satisfying than sourness. Infinitely.
Life is sour enough. I don't think we need to make it intentionally more sour sometimes. And if you want to throw a brick through my window, feel free to. If you don't like that. But I don't know how many sours fans we've got out there, but I guess I'll find out.
Oh, I'll hear all about that.
Yeah, probably so.
I actually, when we released a statement saying we were going to start doing some wild fermented beers, I got some serious flack from customers saying, "Don't you dare."
Don't change a thing. Just leave it the way it is.
It's like, okay, we're keeping everything separate. We know what we're doing. Everything will be separate. It'll never go anywhere near, or we have a room set aside for it. So, but they won't be so much sour. They would be more wild fermented.
What's the difference?
The flavors. We're trying to make sure that it's more of a barnyard, leathery, which is a classic description for lambics.
Okay.
In Belgian.
Yeah,
which is the microorganisms in the air wild spontaneously fermenting.
How's your customer base? Is your customer base experimental? Are they willing to try some new things? Or they like the tried and true in what they've got?
But they want change. They like to experiment, but as long as it's not too over the top. And this will be a challenge for them.
Sometimes it's good to challenge people and get them out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Right, absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why we moved.
Same kind of deal.
We could have been at that old location. And I didn't want to be there.
Did some of your customers that were at the old place, how did they react to when the new place opened up? It's probably going from a beater car to like a nice new Cadillac or something. Right.
Well, quite a few of them got a shock for how busy it was. But it's toned down, it's settled down, and it's into a regular rhythm now, just like it was in the old place. And but yeah, certainly the first 7 months was, I think, took a lot of people by surprise. Took me by surprise.
Well, I know every time I was in there, it was more crowded than I ever saw. And the old place was crowded, but I never saw the old place crowded the way the new place was.
The old place is long and narrow. We're kind of spread out more, and there's more tables and chairs.
You even got a patio at the new place. So
love it.
Yeah, that's nice in the summertime. Peoria, you've been brewing beer, like I say, almost 2 decades in Peoria now. There's been some new people that have come in. You have Obed and Isaac's right up the street over there downtown. They've taken the Cornerstone building, done a nice job with the inside of it. Peoria Brewing, of course, opened up on the north side. They're kind of in a state of flux right now. We're going to see what Travis Molenbrink is going to do with the new brewing concept that he's going to bring in there. Does Peoria have room for more places like this? I know there's a place right around the corner from you, Bearded Owl, that's coming in.
It depends who you speak to. I think we're reaching saturation point.
In general, or just here?
In bars, restaurants, and people. I'm sure people at Peoria's development probably don't want to hear that, but and Chris, don't have a go at me for that.
Talking about Chris Setti, assistant city manager. He's always looking to get more businesses.
Right, and I don't blame him. I mean, if it goes to farm, and the more places that open up in a particular area, the busier it should be for everybody.
Sure,
it should attract more people. So if it goes to farm. So from that point of view, yeah, I mean, you want it. I think we had a conversation a couple of years ago, and you did an article. It's not, you can open up, it's about quality. with breweries in particular. So it's like, and there's a lot of breweries opening up where it's like entry level beer, and it's nothing remarkable. And you go to a lot more breweries than I do, so another one you and I both went to recently in Michigan.
Yes.
I just still can't believe how bad it was. I really can't. I still can't get over it. And that was an award-winning brewer. So you know, as long as the quality's there, it'll be great.
And I think that's the bottom line: is that you still have to brew a good beer. You can't just go out there with any kind of beer and expect to be successful, especially now because there's so many places. Well, there are 5,000 breweries open in the United States.
Right, and I think it's starting to slow down though. And you know, I read a very interesting editorial from the Brewers Association where the president went to the Great American Beer Fest a couple of years ago.
Is that one they have in Colorado?
Yes, the GABF. And he only went to 12 new breweries, participating breweries there, first time there. And he made an effort to go and meet everybody, taste the beers. And he said the beer was overwhelmingly mediocre, but what bothered him the most of these 12 new breweries was that the staff, the brewer, the owners all thought their beer was excellent.
They weren't very self-aware, it sounds like.
Right. You got to be honest with yourself. I learned that. You know, if people come up to you and say, "Hey, the beer's starting to taste a little bit weird," early 1999, 2000, you got to take that on board. You know, be honest with yourself. But yeah, that goes back to the quality thing.
And you have to be able to handle constructive criticism from people too, I'm sure.
Oh, you better believe it.
The customer's always right?
Yeah, and it gets to the point where you know when you're going to put out take a chance with a beer and put it out, you know, don't do that. Don't take a chance. If it doesn't meet your expectations or the customer's expectations more, you're going to be in a sticky wicket, to use a cricket term.
Look up cricket, folks. I can't still figure it out, and I've tried, believe me. You know, the Quad Cities is about the same size as Peoria, and they've got maybe 6 or 7 or 8 breweries up there. I know personally of a couple more that are coming online up there too. Yeah. I mean, they're really getting a reputation as being a beer center. Given the similar demographics and the similar size and you know, their heavy industry, very relatable up there, like we are here with Caterpillar. Do you think the potential is for Peoria to kind of be the same way, to become maybe a pseudo-destination for this sort of thing?
Well, you'd like to think so. Certainly, to be positive, yeah. Well, if you look at the infrastructure, the number of amount of property that's available, and I think that might be one of the determining factors. But yeah, it seems to be very fashionable to put together 10 or 12 guys to invest in a business and see what happens.
I didn't realize there was that much money laying around. Know where I'm at.
I mean, you know, that's the other component as well. And judging by the number of Kickstarters out there, you know, and maybe not that much money.
It does seem like a lot of the places like that are doing their own like GoFundMe page or Kickstarter page or something like that to try to raise money that way.
You know, and it's like, you know, one of the rules of business is don't have enough capital to do your project. And you know, when we went into the new space, we didn't use anywhere near what we could have used. But that's because we wanted to keep everything on a steady keel, not overextend ourselves. And we managed that project pretty well, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, you keep it tight, and you don't spend money you don't have necessarily, and you don't spend money that you can't expect to make back.
The one lesson Maggie Thatcher taught me.
We can talk. Politics might be a whole nother podcast for us sometime, because I think we've got some different opinions on some things, but that's okay. Friends can disagree. What do you think is the appeal of the whole craft beer scene, and especially, like, okay, you guys don't distribute anything. You just, if somebody wants to drink your beer, they have to go to your brewery and drink it themselves. What is it about going to a brewery you think that appeals to so many people now? The camaraderie, the experience, all that.
Well, they're generally cool places to go and just relax and try different beers. And in the early days, they were very much seen as being more accommodating and just different because it wasn't microbrew. Now it's developed into more of a designer appeal, where you have a very modern stainless steel shiny tap room, or you have a very rustic, run down with barn siding kind of tap room. It's all over the place. So I think that the actual design component is a bit more prevalent now than the actual beer. You know, I've lost count. So many places you go into, and it's beautiful, and it's like the beer's just.
They spend more money on their budget for interior decorating than they do for brewing.
Right, and you know, obviously now and again you get some good stuff, you know, but.
I've had some really good beer that comes from places that are, you know, you got some plywood and a little chalkboard, and that's about it. Yep. And then you go to some other place that they've got all the bells and whistles, and it doesn't. It's like, well, that was okay, but I'm certainly not going to make an effort to go out of my way to come back here again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the proof of the pudding is still in the eating. You still have to have a good product. Where do you foresee the craft beer situation maybe in 5 years from now? Not just locally, but just in general.
Hell of a question. There has to be, the bubble has to burst at some point. The growth is already starting to slow down, according to the Brewers Association.
Well, I believe you were saying before we came in here.
It's down to about 6%, I think, as opposed to 18%. So, saturation of the marketplace, economic downturn, you know, I don't know. I really don't. I think the Brewers Association's analysis is the guys at the top and the guys at the bottom will be fine. It's the guys that are in the middle that are all fighting for shelf space and tap handles that's going to get pretty tough. Because the more new breweries open up, particularly for the distribution angle, which is not my business model, but I did do it for 2 years.
How did that work out?
It was a pain in the rear end.
Why was it? What was
just dealing with the retailers.
Can I get my beer in here? Can I? Yeah, you got to have that whole song and dance with a lot of them too.
Right.
And, you know, especially if you go to like, and I'm not singling anybody out, but if you go to like Friar Tuck or someplace like that, and you're walking down the craft beer aisle, there's like a million different varieties, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what's good. Maybe you pick it based on the way the label looks or something like that. You know,
absolutely. And you know, you walk into Friar Tuck's and it's like, they've got so much beer, and you think, I hope this stuff's moving.
Yeah, because at some point, if it sits on the shelf too long, it's not going to taste very good when you open it up.
Yeah, and I know the guys at Friar Tuck's, and I know they do a good job in getting stuff in and out, but that's one of the angles why they really did not want to do distribution. And you never know. We don't have a quality control lab, and if any brewery is going to distribute beer, if they're going to make a go of it, they have to have the right size system, a big system. They have to have a quality control lab. Because the beer is just going to sit on the shelf at 70 degrees. You have no idea what's going to happen to it. So you better be putting out some pretty good sound beer.
And it's a significant expense, is it not? To have, you've got to have a canning line of some sort or a bottling line. It could be a portable one, maybe one you rent, but it's still going to cost.
That's an interesting development, the guys that come around and can for you. I don't know. It makes me nervous thinking when the beer leaves the front door, you know, particularly if it's sitting in the summer. In the winter, it's not a big deal, but you know, it can ruin your reputation.
As long as you've got it in your own brewery, you can control all the aspects of the production.
Right, and it moves faster.
You know, I've noticed that a lot of craft breweries now, they can their beers instead of putting them in bottles. Does it make one difference one way or the other?
And I'm going to start getting hate mail for this one as well. Aesthetically speaking, I had to test cans. I think why make it such a good quality, individualistic product and put it in a can, which is the real, which typifies macro cheap domestic beer. Now, there's a number of economic advantages for breweries to do that, you know, and they're easy to stack, they're easy to supply, blah blah blah. But aesthetically speaking, I think I dislike them immensely. I believe that the canning and the bottling machines, there's not much difference in the oxygen pickup, which is what makes beer eventually go bad. So there can't be that much in the way of technical reasons why you would do it. It's probably cheaper.
I believe it probably is cheaper to do that. It's probably, especially with aluminum prices or metals prices, probably less than glasses these days.
I still think it's more enjoyable to pour a really good beer out of a glass bottle. I really do.
Is there much of a difference in taste as far as you're concerned?
No, it's just me being a beer snob.
I didn't think you were such an elitist.
I'm not normally. No, I'm pretty much down to earth when it comes to that. And you know, on a tangent with the beer snobbery, I think that's one of the things I would like to see change in 5 years. You know, the late great Michael Jackson said it was one of the biggest threats to good beer.
We're not talking about Michael Jackson, the king of pop. We're talking about Michael Jackson is a pretty well-respected
yes, I wish he was still with us.
In craft beer, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't want beer to go the same way as wine.
Yeah, what do you think about that? You see some of these guys coming in, and I don't mean the stereotype, but they're sniffing it and they're sipping it, and this has a delicate bouquet and all this other stuff, and it's like, come on, really? I mean, is it good or is it not good?
This might be the Scottish me coming out, but it's like I don't do well with these kind of guys. It's like beer is beer. It is beer, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
I understand that the pleasure in aromatics and sensing the flavors. I get that. We all do. But you can take it too far, particularly when you start hoarding beer and paying silly prices for bottled beer and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's become like a big thing now. It's like the whole beer swapping, and I'll bring you a bottle of this if you bring me a bottle of that.
And that's very much a part of the beer scene right now, locally, and there's a distinct set of guys that do that and that don't do anything else. And if you don't cater to that, you're just pointless.
There is a fair amount of pretension in the craft beer industry these days.
Great word, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a good thing, at least in my opinion.
No, because after all, if you can't sit down and enjoy a beer, what can you do?
You don't have much of a life if you're doing that.
I'm not drinking that beer because it wasn't well fermented in a bourbon barrel with coffee and vanilla.
Yeah, so at some point you just got to draw the line and say, this tastes good or this doesn't taste good, and kind of leave it at that. You've been over here now almost 20 years. What's life been like in Peoria for somebody who came from the UK?
Interesting. I've had people ask me if we have buses and trains in Scotland. To my reply was no. We still have mud huts though.
You got grass on the top at least.
Some of the best people I've met in Peoria. Some of the worst as well.
Yeah.
But that could be anywhere.
It's like any other towns like that too.
I like the fact that in Peoria you can get around so easily, and so that's a great angle. I like the fact that we were able to be involved in school with the kids.
Do you have 3 children? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, one's an adult now, but he's always going to be a kid. So I like that angle. In actual tactical terms of living here, you can get more property here for your money than you could in Britain, and I know a lot of my English friends say the same thing.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of English expats that are over here that I've talked to at least, and they all that's the first thing that almost all of them say, is that your dollar goes a lot farther or your pound goes a lot farther here than it would be over there. Although I love the UK. I've never been to Scotland, but I do love London, and I love the pub culture and all that too. And there are elements of the pub culture that are in the craft beer culture here.
Right,
as well.
and I think that's what we were trying to get over, to convey. Beer is a social drink. You see people coming in and have a couple of beers and they leave, and you promote social drinking, and not binge drinking.
Yeah. Do you have a problem with people coming in and just getting totally blitzed, having like 7 or 8 or 9 beers and then falling all over themselves?
We watch that. All my staff are Bassett trained, which is the state certification. So we watch that heavily, particularly with the higher alcohol beers. We've cut people off at a certain level, and we patrol that pretty hard. But no, I mean, people don't know that we make strong, flavorful beer at the top end. So when you go to Rhodell Brewery and you get, say, a Scotch Ale, My Best Revenge, or a Hopgasm double IPA, you're going to get a bang for your buck.
Before you get out of here, I want to ask you, where did the name of Rhodell, that's not your name, obviously, where did the name come from?
Johnston Rhodes Odell. So my last name's Johnston, my wife's maiden name's Odell, and my business partner name's Bob Rhodes. So he actually came up with that.
That's pretty clever.
So I shortened it to Rhodell Brewery because it's easier to get on glassware. And
you don't want to get too complicated with stuff. Yeah, when it comes to, you want people to remember it.
Aye.
When you're not brewing beer or running your brewery, what do you do? What do you do for fun?
Read a lot, play a lot of football with my daughter.
Soccer, you mean?
Well, yeah, the real football. I have a secret hobby that not too many people know about, but I've been doing it since I was a kid. So
I guess if I asked you, you wouldn't tell me, right?
No, I've always painted figures.
Really?
Yeah. It's shock horror. The geek
That's so
comes out,
urbane.
The geek comes out, you know.
What do you paint?
Mostly fantasy figures.
Stuff like Dungeons and Dragons type stuff, that sort of thing?
Bigger than that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Never. I don't play with them. I just sit and look at them. Pretend you're a barbarian.
So you have paint. I mean, you do this by number, or how do you use this?
No. It's developed over the years. In fact, before we left Scotland, I was thinking about doing it as a commission painter.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, are you going to put these on display? Any place? You don't have anything hanging at your bar?
I wouldn't put them in the bar, no, because they would probably get ruined. If they survive my two boys, they can survive anything, though. But no, they're all in my house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's it's a very relaxing hobby. It makes me think. The number of new recipes I've come up when I've been painting is ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah.
Just you might see a figure that probably inspires some of the names
not
too.
The figures themselves inspire that. It's just the sitting down and relaxing and doing something, getting your mind off work,
clearing your head. It's funny how sometimes getting your mind off work can make you think about work in a different way, in a more relaxed way, a creative way.
Yeah. So, and that was when I said we took a risk. That was one of the things we were thinking about staying in Scotland and doing. So, being a commission painter or coming over here. So.
Speaking for myself, I'm glad you came over.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I came over as well. I mean, quite honest, I miss Edinburgh, but that's my hometown. So, but this is a good hometown to replace it with.
I miss Chicago sometimes too, but then I drive up there and I wait, 4 hours in traffic to go 5 miles, and then I don't miss it as much anymore.
No, I don't. I can't do Chicago.
No. What of your beers, when you're going to sit down and drink one of your own beers, which one do you usually go to?
Well, the last one I had last night was a Black Angus Stout. Very rich, creamy, easy drinking stout. But it's so complex on so many different levels. If I'm cooking out, I love drinking Hophead. Partly because it's flavour. You only need 2 of them, but the flavour is so long lasting, keeps developing on your palate long after you've finished it. Which I think is one of the strong points of Rhodell beer, is that the flavour components they last on your palate for so long. And for example, the IPAs, so many of the familiar IPAs, straight up front, bang, and then about 2 seconds later, there's nothing. You don't get that with our beer. It's going to develop for at least 2 minutes. I hear people saying there's no way that can happen, but it does.
It's good. I like having beers like that too, that are just not wham bam, thank you ma'am, and it's all over. It's got a taste that doesn't. It's not necessarily overwhelming, but it lingers for a while.
And going back to the IPAs, that seems to be a feature now with this East Coast IPA nonsense, where they add all the hops at the end, so you get more of a floral, aromatic character, and the bitterness is diminished. Well, what's the point?
Well, a lot of times now you got people that are just trying to out-hop each other too.
Right. Well, that happened early on as well, but that's kind of went by the wayside. But
it seems like the new thing now. A lot of these New England style IPAs where they try to make them more juicy type flavored.
Juicy, juicy and cloudy.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
I'm going to quote Dr. Charles Bamforth from the University of California, Davis, the head of the brewing school, probably the best brewing school in America. He absolutely can't stand them. They're pointless. People drink with their eyes. If you want a milkshake, go and get a milkshake.
Maybe pour a little vodka in if you really want to kick.
I'm going to get it for this as well. So, but and it might be just he's too old. He doesn't know. Blah blah blah. But you can have a juicy IPA with it in beautiful crystal clear. People drink with their eyes. It's one of the oldest brewery sayings, and nothing can beat a nice clear looking beer.
Well, this talk is making me thirsty, and it's not even lunchtime yet. This is a problem. Is there anything you want to add before we call it a day today?
No. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming. I appreciate it, Mark. Mark Johnstone from Rhodell Brewery, our guest today on Nick in the Morning, the podcast. Thanks for coming, Mark, and thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.